The Architects of the Neck Canyon. Section 1. The Arches, the Pillars of the Face. Deep within the burgeoning landscape of the fourth-week embryo, a medical student named Eustace stood at the edge of a great architectural site. Before him stood Bronchios, a master shaper who was expertly molding 5 pairs of thick, mesenchymal ridges along the sides of the primitive pharynx. These were the pharyngeal arches, the foundational pillars of the face and neck. Every great structure begins with these swellings, Bronchios explained, pointing to the rhythmic undulations of tissue. Eustace noted that while 6 arches originally appear, the 5th is but a transient ghost, quickly disappearing from the blueprint. Bronchios explained that each arch was a sophisticated construction kit. Inside each ridge, Eustace, we place a core of mesoderm and migrating neural crest cells, he said. From these we will forge a specific cranial nerve, a functional artery, a skeletal element of cartilage or bone, and a dedicated muscle group. Eustace watched as the first arch, the mandibular arch, began to expand. It was the largest and most robust, tasked with the heavy lifting of the lower face and the mechanics of the jaw. "The first arch is for the hungry," Bronchios joked. He showed Eustace how the Meckel's cartilage served as a temporary scaffolding for the mandible, while the muscles of mastication, the temporal, masseter, and PT erigoids began to weave together. He wired it all to the trigeminal nerve, CNV, specifically the mandibular branch. Eustace scribbled in his notes, Arch 1 equals CNV, muscles of biting, hammer and anvil of the ear. Without this arch, the basic tools of survival and speech would never form. Moving down to the second arch, known as the hyoid arch, Bronchios worked with more delicate, artistic movements. "This one is for the expressive," he said. He installed the muscles of facial expression and the stapedius, hooking them up to the 7th nerve, CN7, the facial nerve. Eustace realized that every smile, frown, and surprised look was a gift from this specific ridge and its Reichert's cartilage. He noted how this arch also contributed to the upper part of the hyoid bone and the stirrup of the ear. As construction continued to the 3rd, 4th, and 6th arches, the work became more internal and vital for life. Bronchios explained that the 3rd arch provided the foundation for the glossopharyngeal nerve, CN9, and the lower part of the hyoid. The 4th and 6th arches worked in tandem to build the larynx, the voice box, powered by branches of the vagus nerve, CNX. The 4th handles the cricothyroid, while the 6th manages the intrinsic muscles of the larynx, Bronchios noted. Eustace observed the intricate laryngeal cartilages taking shape from the lateral plate mesoderm. Section 2. The Grooves and Pouches, the Inner and Outer Valleys. While the arches grew outward, Eustace noticed deep valleys forming between them. On the outside, these were the pharyngeal grooves, lined with ectoderm. Most of these valleys will be filled in as the second arch grows down to cover them, forming the cervical sinus which eventually disappears, Bronchios noted. But the first groove is the exception. Eustace peered closely through a magnifying lens and saw the first groove deepening, forming a long tunnel that would eventually become the external auditory meatus, the ear canal. Bronchios then turned the model around to reveal the inner lining. "The valleys on the inside are the pharyngeal pouches," he said, pointing to the endoderm-lined pockets. The first pouch was reaching out to meet the first groove. Bronchios explained that this inner pocket would expand to become the middle ear cavity and the auditory tube. "It creates the vital bridge between the pharynx and the ear," the master architect said, showing how the second pouch would later form the niche for the palatine tonsils. Section 3. The Great Migration and the Final Membrane. The deeper pouches held even more complexity. Bronchios showed how the 3rd pouch sprouted 2 different buds, the inferior parathyroid gland and the thymus. "The thymus is a traveler," Bronchios whispered. Eustace watched as the thymic tissue began a long migration down into the mediastinum, dragging the parathyroid along with it. The 4th pouch followed, creating the superior parathyroid glands and the ultimobranchial body, which contributes C cells to the thyroid. The lower pouch goes lower, and the upper stays higher, Eustace noted, capturing the paradox of parathyroid descent. Between the first groove on the outside and the first pouch on the inside, a very thin partition remained. The pharyngeal membrane, Bronchios announced. Eustace touched the delicate, three-layered sheet. It was a sandwich of ectoderm on the outside, endoderm on the inside, and a sliver of mesoderm in the middle. This, he realized, was the blueprint for the tympanic membrane, the eardrum. It was the only pharyngeal membrane to persist, designed to vibrate with the sounds of the future world. As the sun set on the workshop, the ridges and valleys began to fuse, smoothing into a recognizable neck and face. Eustace looked at his digital notes, seeing how the arches, pouches, grooves, and membranes fit together like a masterfully designed biological puzzle. "The canyon is closed, and the blueprint is complete," Bronchios said with a smile. Eustace thanked the master architect, feeling ready to apply this knowledge of the architects of the Neck Canyon to his clinical studies and his future as a physician.